Hey cats, Ed MidsoleBud here. I've been sharpening my top line speed recently with some interval and repeat sessions. It got me thinking about which shoes in my collection are best for all out speed. Racing those shorter distances, what should I have on foot for the upcoming ASICS 10K? As such, here's my top 5 shoes for speed only. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, do think about subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up like. It really does help out. You know it makes sense. Today I've got for you my top 5 shoes for speed only that I have in my current collection. The shoes in today's list seem to work for me in those sessions where I'm doing some 5 or 10k effort. Interestingly enough, they're all on the lighter side and there's a couple in there with a slightly lower drop. Let's get to the list. At number 5, it's the Zero Adios 8 from Adidas. I'm really enjoying this 8th revision of the Adios series. It's a little bit lighter and a little bit more cushioned in the heel area. You've still got that trademark response though that I've enjoyed from this series over the last few years. Many runners really enjoy this Zero model because you've got a slightly lower stack, and that really does appeal to people if you're running that 5 to 10k distance. This one fits really well. You've got some nice minimal materials in the upper. There's no bells and whistles. It's a nice containing nature here in the upper too. It really does attach you to that midsole base, and you've got some really nice tacky rubber here. I don't mean that it's cheap or anything, it's just really grippy. I found, as usual with Adidas shoes of this nature, it just gets better and better the more you use it. That's been very typical actually over the last few years with some of the Zero models. The midsole softens up a little bit, but you've got those forks there to provide you with a little bit of propulsion. I like the fact that the low weight of the shoe just kind of keeps it out of the way. It doesn't really bother you on foot, and I think it's a really nicely priced model as well. 120 Earth credits retail. No doubt it's going to appeal to people as a durable trainer and racer. I've noticed with those 5k or 10k efforts in some of my runs recently, this one really does work for me, really does help me to increase that cadence. So at number 5 is the Adios 8. Coming in at position number 4, we've got the Liberate Nitro 2 from Puma. This is that little bit lighter than the Adios 8, though it does serve a very similar purpose. Again, it's a really simple upper here from Puma. No bells and whistles. In fact, there's next to nothing on the other side. You can often pick this one up as well for well under £100, so it does make for a really good value shoe. The Liberate Nitro 2 might be a little bit heavier than the first version. I found that to be a super fast and very nimble shoe, again with a nice simple fit and lockdown. We have a Nitro only midsole here in the Liberate 2. It just keeps out of the way your stride really, and again lets you up that cadence. The Nitro midsoles are a little bit different to some of the others. I find it more of a rebound type material. I always remember the first time of trying out the Puma DV8 Nitro. It was a bit like bouncing on the top of one of those high rebound balls. Maybe a little bit like the feeling you get when you hit a tennis ball right in the center of a racket. It's not super squashy, it's just one of those materials that returns to form very quickly. I've also found Nitro material to be exceptionally durable as well. Plus for 5 to 10k on road, you want that grip, and you've got spades here. Well, they're not spades, they're rubber nodules or protrusions, I suppose. It's a slightly more simple application than you get in some of the other Puma shoes right now, but it does the job, and at that price you can't really moan. It's hard not to give the Liberate Nitro 2 a place on this list. It really does fit into that sort of shorter distance category. And looking at some of my recent Strava training runs, it certainly did get the best out of me. So at position 4, it's the Liberate Nitro 2 from Puma. At position 3, it's a shoe that I used only this morning for a faster training session, the Hoka Rocket X2. Taking advantage of those cooler conditions earlier on, in some light drizzle, I got out for a 5 by 1 kilometer session, totaling a little over 6.1 miles. Rocket X2 really did hit the spot today. Those faster reps and then the slower recoveries. It's soft and forgiving when you want it to be when you're recovering from those faster bursts, but nice and propulsive after that, enabling a nice fast turnover. On some wet and at times very slippery conditions, the outsole here really did eat it up. Grip was sound, and there was only a couple of occasions where I hit a sort of muddy patch where I had any sorts of issues at all. It was nice plain sailing otherwise. For me, this one really hits the spot of the 10k effort sort of pace. It's So for me, it's about 6 minutes 35 seconds per mile. I really do like the slightly wider landing platform that you've got here, certainly over the other two shoes in the list so far, and the response of the foam and the plate, it really does sort of spring back quickly. Perhaps it's also the lower drop that's actually influencing that quicker cadence. Some shoes seem to take a bit of effort to sort of get that cadence and turnover going. Not the Rocket X2. It's just something about the whole profile of the shoe that just works. Certainly one of the best shoes that I've been using recently in terms of vertical ratio. That for me at least documents that I run very efficiently in the shoe. Stride length increasing only marginally when I'm running faster, though cadence increasing so much more. Yes, it is a more expensive shoe than the other two that I featured in the list so far, but it really does get the best out of me. So at position 3, it's the Hoka Rocket X2. At position 2, I have a shoe for you where I have a bit of a love-hate relationship for it. It has been growing on me in terms of the midsole feel though, and that's the Vaporfly Next Percent 3. Now, I struggled initially to see how this shoe is better than the V1 or the V2, though at this point I feel the shoe's just flexing a little bit more. It actually feels a lot better than it did out the box. Perhaps I'm just getting used to it, and I still don't like the upper all that much, but boy can I run fast in this one. I've been using it for 1k repeats, maybe even like a mile or 2 mile repeats. It's such a forgiving ride and it's just so light. It almost seems to suit me better on the shorter distances than perhaps the half marathon or marathon effort. Though I've got to really cinch those laces down across the top of the foot. It really does look a bit weird once I've actually laced the shoe up. The toe box is just like laughably sloppy and overly generous in terms of the materials, though I do get a good lockdown in the shoe from that sort of internal padding. I found the outsoles gripping well on wet roads and pavements, and I think it is one of the shoes that gets the best out of me on those shorter bursts. I'd actually love to run a 5k in anger and see what I could do in this shoe. Just wish the upper was a little bit more in tune with my foot. It's not perfect, but it is still one of the best race shoes out there, and I think perhaps better for me this time round for 5 or 10k. At position 2, it's the Vaporfly Next Percent 3. I did do one of these lists last year, and in position 1 it's the same shoe once again. First place for me is the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus. I have been saving these back and using them only sporadically for very specific training runs or races. For me it's still top of the tree, and it's one of the best looking shoes in my whole collection. This really seems to work for me with that slightly larger mid to forefoot landing area and that extremely responsive rebound like flight foam turbo. There's nothing quite like this stuff, guys. I've tried all the super shoes out and this one really is something special. People keep telling me to try out the Super Blast from Asics. Hopefully that is going to happen very soon. That's got a whole bunch of that flight foam turbo in the midsole, so very excited to see what it's like. Do I read it right as well that this 45mm of stack in the sample size of that one? Can that be right? It's going to be huge in my size. I really love the simple upper design here. It fits my foot like a glove. No bells or whistles, and that outsole rubber is simply divine, especially in hot weather. It's almost like a race slick. Once it's warmed up a little bit, it almost grips the road like a piece of chewing gum. Not sure what they put in this formula, but it's so tacky, it's incredible. Really grips the road, and I found it great on cornering. I think for me at pace, certainly around about 5 or 10k effort, there's nothing that touches it. It helped me to a sub 42 minute effort in the Martok 10k last year, and I was only just over 42 minutes on that incredibly hot Asics 10k last year. I will be at this year's event on the 9th of July. It was absolutely baking last year. I think it was like 20 degrees by about 9:30 when the race kicked off. I do hope it's a touch cooler this time round, because I was absolutely destroyed by the end of that one. Averaged about 181 steps per minute cadence on that race. Average heart rate of about 159, though I did max it out about 169 on the final stretch. It was a real all-out performance in this shoe, but very exhilarating, very enjoyable, and the legs felt absolutely fine afterwards. I hope I can match or improve upon that time in this year's race. So for all-out speed, for me at least, the Metaspeed Sky Plus from Asics is the number one. I wonder what Asics has got in store for this model in terms of an update for 2023. We shall see. Will you be at the Asics 10k in July? Let me know in the comments. What do you make of my list today? Let me hear your thoughts and opinions down here. Very quick musical interlude for you. I've just seen that Ben Folds is doing some UK dates. I think he's playing around November time here. I'm going to try and catch him over in Bath. It's been a long time since I saw Ben Folds, and I heard some of that beautiful piano. Really digging his new album, What Matters Most. One of my favourite tracks, in fact, is Back to Anonymous. Kind of sounds like he's thinking about how, where he was very famous, now he's perhaps not so much. Perhaps you can get away with, you know, walking to the store and buying some groceries or something without getting noticed. Some beautiful piano on this track, such a laid back sort of mood. Really nice brush work on the drums. So much space on this album in terms of the tracks. Perhaps apart from Exhausting Lover, which is got a lot of material going on there. It's quite humorous actually, that track. A lot of the time people think Ben Folds tunes are, you know, a little bit like Brick and stuff like that, but yeah, these days he's very much a comedian sometimes. Some really good funny tunes and really interesting lyrics. Go and check this one out, people. It's called What Matters Most by Ben Folds. Thanks for tuning in, it's always appreciated. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you.